Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the wild and beautiful journey of womanhood. We're here to create a space where women can connect, inspire, and uplift each other. Untamed Blossoms is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. It's a gathering of strong, fierce women who are breaking free from society's expectations.
Our mission is to deep dive into the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, even in the face of adversity. We believe by sharing these stories, we can inspire others to do the same. Join us as we sit down with women from all walks of life who have faced their own struggles and emerged as the most authentic versions of themselves. From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we'll explore their triumphs and tribulations. Together, we'll navigate the challenges of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-love.
But Untamed Blossoms is more than just conversations. We're a community that gathers for events, immerses ourselves in the beauty of nature, and supports one another in our personal and professional growth. So whether you're seeking inspiration, looking for a supportive sisterhood, or simply want to hear incredible stories of women blazing their own trails, Untamed Blossoms is here for you. Together, let's embrace our wildness, bloom unapologetically, and rewrite the rules. Welcome to Untamed Blossoms.
All right, welcome back to this week's episode of Untamed Blossoms. We are still sitting down with Brittany Stone, and we're going to talk a little bit more about sobriety.
Continue on, part two. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the pod.
Yay. So I think we left off, Brittany, you were going to talk a little bit about this last year and how sobriety has changed maybe or evolved, and then just some things that you went through and how you've coped with those things.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that, and I'm very proud of this, over the last year, I started therapy last year after dealing with a lot of traumatic events. I have completed 55 appointments as of yesterday, so I take it very seriously and highly recommend therapy to everyone. Find who's right for you and just be consistent, because through therapy is a coping mechanism, but you also learn other healthy coping mechanisms. So therapy has become a big part of my life, and probably a big reason I stay sober, because I'm able to process my feelings with someone. But the hardest point of sobriety for me was definitely last year. I was in a relationship with an alcoholic, so that wasn't helpful. I got pregnant. I had a miscarriage. That was devastating. And then I lost my Nana, who is my idol. She's my guardian angel now. But that was just so heartbreaking. And then on top of all of that, we were going through layoffs at work. So I thought I was about to lose my job. So, I'm about to be unemployed. I'm grieving. I'm not just grieving my beautiful grandmother. I'm also grieving the baby that I desperately wanted to have. And through that, my daughter was also dealing with stuff. So, she was having a really difficult time. Like me, she has a hard time with mental illness, anxiety. So both of us were just trying to figure stuff out, and I felt like I had to be strong for her, but I was really not doing well. But saying all that, I stayed sober. That is literally all I could focus on. And I'm so happy that I didn't decide to just drink so that I could drown all of that out. I felt every single emotion, as hard as it was. And I hit a point where it got really bad, and I felt like I was not valuable to the world anymore, that it was just going to be easier to not feel anything at all. And thankfully, my best friend, you called my mom.
Called your mom.
Called my mom.
All you
Noah,
can
come
do
on.
sometimes.
Yeah, I suffering in silence. I'm not good at telling people when I'm having a hard time. I just hermit, like, hide. I'm going to hide from everyone. I don't want to burden anyone with my emotions. So yeah, it got really bad, and to the point where I was agoraphobic. Like, I did not want to go outside. I was scared to drive. I was scared to do anything because I was just waiting for the next horrible thing to happen. And that's kind of what happens when you have so many bad things happen at once. So, waiting for the next thing to happen, you called my mom. I was At that point, I was in therapy for a little bit, but I wasn't quite fully processing it yet. So I am very thankful I got on a safety plan. And what happened and what was the game changer for me was I went to visit my grandma at her lake house, and it was very therapeutic. um she is sober, so we talked about that a little bit, but she also struggles with like anxiety and mental health, so we talked a lot about it. I felt like I had someone that understood what I was going through. But that leads into another coping mechanism. While I was there, I microdosed, and that was
Microdose what?
mushrooms.
Okay.
I microdosed with
Psilocybin,
mushrooms.
yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I know it's another substance, right? Or considered a substance, but I consider it natural. And it actually just made me realize how beautiful everything is. I was able to like visually see everything was brighter, everything was like more intentional. I just literally sat on the beach, like at Lake Erie. Sat on the beach and I was watching when I did it. I sat there and I was watching the sunset. And it was just, I just started crying because I was like, it's just beautiful. Like, the world is bigger than me. Like, the universe is so big. Like, I will be okay.
Isn't
Like,
it interesting how alcohol makes your world so small?
yes.
And then something like psilocybin
Yeah.
makes you realize, oh, I'm small. This world is big
Right.
and beautiful.
And I'm a part of it.
Yes.
And you feel it's a, psilocybin is a heart opener. So it makes you feel connected. It makes you feel alive and you want to connect with people in a deep, intimate way. Versus alcohol is a very, it is an isolatory thing. You don't know what's happening around you. So
yeah, that's the perfect, like, it opens you up.
It opens
like
you up.
It's not
Yeah.
I remember everything. I'm
Right.
not like, taking mushroom gummies and blacking out.
Yeah, you're deeply moved as to what the universe has for you and with you, and what you're in
Yes.
community with, and the trees and the birds and the clouds and the sun and the
Everything.
water and the sand you're sitting on. Like, I'm a part of all of this, right?
All of your senses are
yeah.
heightened.
Yeah.
And that could be a good thing or a really bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's different for everyone.
Right.
But for me, it was cathartic. Like, it was just this eye-opening experience. And I still microdose. That is still one of my coping mechanisms, I guess. And I'm not saying it's for everyone, but it helped me deeply, especially coming out of all of those things that happened. I would say that was a big piece of my healing from that situation. that and just having a support system, like having my best friend. I keep saying like my best friend, you're sitting right next to me, but having you, Amanda, and having having my grandma, having my mom. I stay sober mostly because of Lucy. So having Lucy around, us like bonding over this traumatic experience that we dealt with, um, there were a lot of things that like pulled me out of it, but definitely psilocybin was like a game changer for me.
Can we then talk a little bit about, because I know Christy's mentioned this multiple times, but the healing properties of nature
Oh,
and just like your experience, and I know Christy has a lot to add here as well, of just like how it heals.
yeah.
Because I feel like, yes, psilocybin and yes, some of these things too, but I feel like your connection with nature really changed through all of this as well.
Yeah, so nature is actually one of my 3 main like personality traits that I've discussed in therapy. Like I had to answer like 50 questions and we narrowed it down to 3 things that are the most important to me, and nature is one of those. So I guess that also ties into the psilocybin, is like going on hikes and everything's more visual and being able to experience it so open. Kayaking. So that was actually also one of the biggest things, is after I got back from my grandma's lake house, he took me kayaking and I was like, this is life changing. Like the water is so beautiful. We are so small, but important and significant. But at the same time, like we're just little blips in the universe, but it matters. Like what we do matters and what we surround ourselves with matters. So yeah, nature is a huge one. Going on hikes, we had our women's retreat, and that's I used psilocybin when we were there, and it was just like you're not like taking it to go out and act crazy, or it's not like that. It's open. Like I'm opening
You're in
myself.
communion with another part of nature.
Yes, you
Right?
are nature. You're part of it.
You're using something that is part of nature.
Yes.
That is medicinal medicine as part of nature to help you experience that in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's reprogramming your brain, and we could do a whole nother podcast on what we're doing with plant medicines in the world these days. And some of it is well intentioned and some of it is about making money. And unfortunately, people are suffering at the hands of people that are not really doing the correct bidding of what we should be doing, shamans, and there's true shamans and true people that are really lovers and ushers of this medicine into this world. And I'm not sure that everybody's doing that the right way in this commercialized society that we live in right now. And I think some people are suffering from that, but I also know that the people who are doing it right are like, the stories are vast and wide. It's the same thing. I was going to kill myself. I was at the end of my rope, and I went to have a big plant medicine ceremony, and I never touched alcohol or drugs again ever in the rest of my life.
Like
my experience in ayahuasca, it was such a profound experience that I never touched it again. Right? Like they're using different kinds of plant medicine, even in Western medicine, for PTSD, and we're reintroducing some of this stuff to rewire the brain. And so I think that's a cool thing, that you're using plant medicine to rewire your neurology of how you feel like you fit in this world, where you've conditioned yourself for so many years to believe that I don't fit in here.
Yeah.
And I need something to make me fit in.
Yeah.
And you don't, right? And so this plant is showing you that every time you take it.
Yeah.
What a beautiful gift that is.
It really is. And I recognize now that I'm a healer. People will take advantage of that. And being a healer is hard, but I do want to use that skill. Like I want people to feel like they can come to me for healing, but at the same time I have to protect that. I'm an empath. I have to protect my feelings and keep myself safe. But But psilocybin also helped me recognize the magical powers that I have. Like, I am magical. I am a very spiritual person. It helped me lean into that. And I feel like that kind of goes into being Cali sober.
Yeah.
So, I also, talking about plant medicine, I do also use THC. I do not use it nearly as much as I used to. Now I use it to sleep. Like, that is the main reason I use THC, is to sleep. I do have PTSD,
Yeah.
among other things.
Right.
But without THC, I have horrible nightmares, very vivid nightmares. I feel like I don't sleep. Like, I literally feel awake the whole time because I'm just having these like vivid visions and stuff in my sleep. So at this point in my life, I use it to help sleep. And I do still use it in social situations as well, specifically like the drinks. Like, a big part of being in social situations for me is I just want to be holding a drink. It just makes me feel safer. Like, I just want to have something in my hands. So, like, I'll drink the Delta 8s or like the THC drinks. Like, we just had our friend's wedding, and throughout the wedding, I drank like those THC drinks. But it's not like you're not like getting blasted with THC. Like, it just gives you a little bit of that buzz. So, all of that said, that does not make my sobriety less valid. I My sobriety is valid regardless of some of the other substances I use, and I recognize that they're plant medicine. It's not I'm not using these substances to black out. When I drank, I was drinking to black out. Every single time I was blacking out.
Yeah.
And that's super scary.
Yeah.
You wake up and you lost all of that time.
Right. Absolutely.
And now I'm very thankful that I've had a lot of beautiful experiences because I've been sober. I went to London twice, and I remember every single second. I've gone to so many amazing concerts. The Eras tour, like, what? That was beautiful. Like, I don't know how to describe that experience, but like, I would not have been able to remember those things or have those experiences if I was drinking.
It's really wild that we use alcohol to enhance our time. And then when you get sober, you realize how much time it took away.
You just lost it.
Time goes by so much slower when you're not spending your week waiting to get to your weekend to get so drunk
that you can't remember any
of it. And then Sunday gets here and you have the morning anxiety, and then you have the evening Sunday scaries, and then suddenly you're drinking on Wednesdays because it's halfway through the week, and then Thursday's Friday Eve and you're drinking, and then it's the weekend again. And that quickly becomes, if you have a problem with alcohol, like I would say, especially you and I did, it was just a way to keep time moving quickly.
Yeah.
But then everyone talks about how much time they wish they had. The best gift of time you can give is getting yourself sober.
Absolutely.
Truly.
So out of this, I would like to kind of pivot to positive things that have come out of this, right? Like, I would like for Brittany to talk about her kind of journey with your bread making. I would love to hear about that. She's quite talented. Like, you should give them the history of kind of how that was born, way back when, but and kind of where it's at now. But also talk about you guys as, your positive coping mechanisms. I mean, mine is when I get angry or upset, I clean.
Oh yeah.
I'm angry vacuuming. You angry walk. We talk about that.
Range
and I'm like,
crochet.
yeah. If you come in and my house is spotless, you're like, what's happening? What's going on with you? So you're cleaning like a mad woman, and I'll be talking to you and cleaning at the same time. Like, something's clearly bothering me. So there's there's some positive coping mechanisms that I think we have. And I would like for you guys to talk about that and then talk about kind of how you've taken all of that and pivoted in your life to where you're at now.
Yeah. Um, I'll start with baking. So we already kind of hit on nature, going on hikes, kayaking, exercise. We go to the gym together. That is a very healthy coping mechanism. But bread baking specifically has become my hyper fixation. I actually went to culinary school, so that was my passion for as long as I can remember. I wanted to be a pastry chef. I watched all of the competitions on like the Food Network. My mom and I started like a cake business when I was in high school, so I would make like wedding cakes and stuff for people. Went to culinary school my last 2 years of high school. Out of culinary school, I became a pastry chef. So the thing with the culinary industry is that you have no time for yourself. Like it consumes you, and you know
Yep.
how this looks, and you do too. So um it I and my husband was a chef too. So both of us were in this industry, and there were times where I was working 100-hour weeks, and I was hiding in the bathroom to take a 15-minute nap in a bathroom stall. Like it was awful. I was doing competitions, so that like we would literally have to stay up all night practicing for competition. And I was definitely using alcohol to help cope with all this at the time. But what happened was, and after that, I ended up working at a bakery. Did that for a little bit as the pastry chef there. And I just like kind of snapped. Like, I was like, this is not for me. I want to have time with my daughter. It also like coincides with my divorce. Like, I was alone so often. When I was not working, I was taking care of Lucy. And there was a point where I was working third shift, and I would come home from work and have to get Lucy ready for school and take her to school, and then I would get to take like a little nap, and then I would have to get up and pick her up from school and make dinner and put her to bed and wait for my ex to come home so that I could go to the bakery and do it all over again. There were even times where I would bring her to the bakery and he'd pick her up from there. It was just exhausting. And like, I forgive myself for drinking. I was just like so overwhelmed and so exhausted. Alcohol wasn't helping with that, but I thought like it was making me at least be able to like cope with all the stress.
Yeah.
And alcohol is huge in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone that I worked with drank heavily. Um I think it's just like so stressful that sometimes you don't know how to deal with it. Um, so I stepped away from baking pastry once my ex and I separated, and I went back to the corporate world. And that is where I met Amanda. She was my manager at work, and you taught me how to be a good manager. Like I was able to step into this like boss bitch role because of everything you taught me. I was a big sorry person when you met me. Like I would just again apologize for existing. Like I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I do not do that anymore. Like
Snapped.
yeah, I snapped. I snapped. So I took a break from baking, went back to the corporate world, met my best friend. So thankful for that. And more recently, like I still baked at home for fun. Like I I love baking. That didn't go away. I just did not want to do it as a
For a
job
job, yeah.
anymore because that took away the joy.
Right.
Like absolutely threw the joy in the trash. Like I had nothing left.
Yeah.
So I would bake for people to show them I love them. And that's my main love language is cooking for people and giving people
Baked goods.
sweet treats.
Yes.
Yes, that is truly my main love language. But I still baked. And then more recently, I got into making sourdough. So through the whole process, so over the last year, through the whole process of, losing a baby, losing my grandma, like all these things, I wanted to have something to take care of. And with sourdough, you have to
Very labor of love.
It is a labor of love. You have to create a starter, which is literally just flour and water. And the yeast becomes active.
Yeah.
It's a natural leaven. So literally mix flour and water, wait, wait, wait. And then you start to feed it and it becomes active and it's a natural leaven. So the yeast becomes active and it's just like this science experiment. And that was so cool to me. And I needed something to take care of. Like I was missing what I thought I was going to have. So I wanted to replace it with a healthy coping mechanism.
Nice.
So another thing that took me to bread baking is that was like a really big thing in the summers when I lived in Florida. My aunt and my grandma were very into making bread in the bread machine. And the smell of bread baking is like takes me right back to childhood, like takes me to summers watching my aunt make these like beautiful loaves of bread and her bread maker, and it smelled so good. Sourdough was like my Nana's favorite. Like she always had a loaf of sourdough. So it's honestly like a tribute to her.
There's a little part of her in every loaf.
It is
Yeah.
100%. It's like it's a science experiment. It is so therapeutic. You have to spend a lot of time making this. Like sourdough, you mix all your ingredients. You have to wait an hour for it to autolyse. And then after that, you have to do 4 sets of stretch and folds, 30 minutes to an hour apart. And then after that, you have to let it rest and proof for like 8 hours, depending on the temperature in your house. And then after that, you have to preheat your oven for an hour. And then you finally get to bake the bread. And then guess what? You have to wait like 2 hours for the bread to cool before you can cut it. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to make you a loaf of bread in a day. Like that's not how it works. It's truly a labor of love.
It's like 3 days. It's like 3 days from start to finish eating a loaf of bread.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I just realized through this that this is what I enjoy. Like it's so intentional. I am putting all of my love into this bread and sharing it with people, and that feels so good. So like my dream is to have a sourdough micro bakery. And the cool I know I'm like really getting into it. The really cool thing with sourdough is, you're sitting there and you're feeding this starter. And on top of that, you have to like discard every time you feed your starter. So you're supposed to like get rid of some of that starter you can make stuff with all that discard. So on top of making bread, I'm sitting here and I'm making brownies with the discard. I'm making crackers. I'm making um waffles, sourdough waffles, so good. So I also feel like I'm not wasting anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like utilizing every single um I'm using everything and I'm repurposing and
Being super creative. It sounds
yeah, I get to be totally creative and
Yeah.
I just get to feed everyone and
which
it's
is
great.
a nice stretch away from your corporate job currently,
Yeah,
is to
yeah,
do this. And
big time.
yeah, yeah,
And they all very much appreciate
yeah.
my sourdough
I bet.
endeavors as well.
I bet.
I work with all men. It's interesting. But I love to bring them bread, brownies, whatever. They truly appreciate it and are thankful for it. So it just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I think a real lesson too in all of this is once you're in sobriety and you maybe try on some not so great coping mechanisms and you get to a good one or two that you find are helpful, it's you're really pouring your love into that thing then to be able to give out, right? Like
Yeah.
I know I went pretty heavy in plants
I can relate.
when I first got sober. I've always, not always, but in recent years I've gotten into plants, but wow, did I really buy too many and still have a lot. But it was so kind of the same thing, taking care of them. Like I have what, 4 in just this room, tiny room, and having to have a watering schedule and a clipping schedule and propagating. It just feels so good to take care of yourself, but then also this thing that doesn't ask anything of you except for to keep alive, like your starter, like these
Yes.
plants. And I really got into crocheting right after I got sober. The very next month, my mom, my poor mother, has tried to teach me for so many years, and I have horrible patience. I'm not a patient person at all. I am with people, not with anything else. And I could never do it because I wasn't comfortable sitting. The thought of sitting, first of all, who has the time to sit down? But the thought of sitting for hours at a time doing something with my hands, not being able to, like, I don't know, hold a drink or go out or avoid anything and everything. I just thought, wow, there's no way I could do that. And then I found myself with so much time on my hands, so much time. And getting sober in the winter was also very interesting, as I'm sure you can relate, because there's nothing to do outside. It's Ohio. You could freeze to death. Who
Boring.
can say? Boring. So I spent a lot of time learning that, and now I get to give these very much like bread. This isn't, you don't crochet a blanket in a day.
No, one of my most cherished items in my house is the blanket that you made me.
Mine
You
too.
crocheted me. Every time I snuggle up with that blanket, I can feel the love. Like, it's just the most beautiful gift anyone's ever given me. Like,
It's just so wonderful to know that, like, I can make something for someone with the intention that I really care about them so deeply that I would spend that much time
yep.
doing that one thing. 'Cause that's not normally in my nature. So, for me, if I am coping by being still, I know it's the right thing.
Yeah.
If I'm coping and feel too busy, I know I'm teetering onto the wrong side.
Yeah.
So I have created a measurement for myself to say, if I'm stacking my schedule, if I'm being so busy all over the place, I can recognize that as avoidance and saying this is not healthy. If I'm doing something like walking, which sometimes does turn into rage walking, that's okay. I have my walking pad. And if I'm walking, and again, for me, that's stillness still, because I'm in one spot and I'm just walking or I'm reading my Kindle or whatever that looks like, I know I'm on the right path of coping in the right way for me.
You're moving that energy through you.
Yeah.
Very bodily, right? Getting into your body and moving it out, which I think
Right.
is really important. And I think you touched on that, Brittany, that just coming and working out and getting out in nature is actually being physical. So it's helping those emotions that we've been drinking away, right? To move through our body in a way that can just move through. And we can just move
Walking
it through.
literally heals trauma.
Yeah.
Just walking.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I am reading a book that I wanted to tell you guys about because as you were speaking about your childhood, Brittany, you literally could have been reading pages out of this book that I think that you might, and you maybe you've already read it. It's called The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron.
I have not read it because I feel like I will just feel attacked. I do want to read it.
No, it's not attacking.
Okay, okay.
No, absolutely. This is a book about you.
Okay, yeah.
And about understanding you. Like you literally are describing exactly like what she is describing in this book. Like you are the same person. And I think that a lot of, if any of this with you guys in our audience resonates with Brittany, you should read this book. And the reason I say that is that we show up into this world how we are. And I 100% believe that. And by no fault of anybody's, our parents or anybody else, sometimes we don't get what we need in this world as in our formidable years, and we're spent the rest of our adult years trying to figure that out. This book literally is a guidebook to highly sensitive people, and the reason I'm reading it is I have 2 highly sensitive grandchildren, and I want to do the right thing by them now. I don't want them to have to, and I've told their parents to read this book. I'm like, you guys should really start reading this book. I'm not all the way through it yet, so I don't want to speak on it quite yet, but it's been profound in what I'm learning about them and how to best support them and how they can have healthy attachments at this age, being sensitive humans that they are, so they don't have unhealthy attachments later, right? And trying to fix or trying to, that's what alcoholism comes into play, right? Is that we're trying to fill this void and we don't feel like we're good enough, or we don't feel like we fit in, or we don't feel like all of these things. And then we find these substances, whether it's alcohol, people become addicted to a bunch of things, right? Yeah. Like, I don't want to say that alcoholism is the only addiction out there. It's not. There's video games, there's porn, we could go on and on what people fill this void with. So although we're talking about sobriety from alcohol, I would encourage everybody to look at your patterns. And if you can substitute alcohol with something else in any of your world that helps you feel better and feel normal and you feel great in that world, and you don't have to, you're avoiding people and you're avoiding self, it's an addiction, people. And I still have some, and I'm sure you guys still have some. Sometimes we can substitute it with good addictions, but better addictions that are serving us better, but may not be serving us fully. And I think just having a good look at that in our lives. And I could not be more impressed by the 2 ladies sitting in front of me currently. And it's going to make me cry because, Christy cries always. Brittany, when you say that you don't think that you were meant to be here, it's going to make me really tearful. I can't tell you how many people that you have influenced to stop drinking. Not just her, but I can tell you that people in my life are watching her account. People in your life are watching your account. I know that you guys came together and made Sober Besties, which is a Instagram account. You guys should follow her. Follow them. It's got beautiful content as well. I just want to say thank you for that and for being strong enough to step outside of what you're doing and being able to show that in public, which is not really comfortable for you, I don't think. Same as me. That you're having such a, you say that you're a healer. We start by healing ourselves. And you don't have to do anything more than that. And look what that cost. And so for all of you who think you have to do something big and have a big business and do a big thing, you don't. You just have to start with yourselves, and you will heal yourself. You will heal your family. You will heal your children. You will heal your parents. That is happening through us. And I watch it through you guys, and it is beautiful. And you should be really proud of yourselves.
When anyone listens to any of these episodes or stories, that's the message. It's always the message. And it's take care of you, take care of yourself. Like, nothing big and grand can happen when you're not right with you. And so that's really, really crucial and really, really important. And also I find it interesting that sourdough brings you back to your childhood and that smell. Because every episode, whoever we talk to, always ends up bringing back something that they always knew was so important in their lives.
Yeah.
That they abandoned.
That they abandon. Always.
I think as you get older, you want more and more to heal your inner child.
Yeah. For sure.
And also, your passion doesn't always have to be a job.
No, it does not.
Right? You took your passion and turned it into a job and have to
not making it your job.
Right? And so you don't always have to monetize it. And that was part of what we talked about another time too.
Yeah.
Another episode is don't monetize your passion. Just be passionate about it. It doesn't have to make you money.
Yeah, and I
Those two
think
things are
that
separate.
is also a good segue to Sober Bestie Guide.
Yeah.
So we have an account at Sober Bestie Guide. After you got sober, we were just kind of like, well, how can we support other people? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have the resources, so you wanted to create a space that people could find these resources.
Yeah.
Our
friend Chrissy joined us too, so
yes.
That's part of the ripple of all of this. Is Brittany got sober, then I got sober, and then Chrissy got sober. And now we have this page. So if you're struggling, or even if you're just curious, you have someone to reach out to.
Yeah, and it's not a job for us. That's where I was kind of going with that. We are passionate about it, but it's not our job. We just want to help. So if it is just posting a couple pictures every once in a while, if it's like someone coming on the account and seeing like the book recommendations, we just want a platform that is going to help people and also normalize sobriety.
Yeah. I think what's very cool about this younger generation coming up is they're saying no to alcohol at a alarming rate per the alcohol industry.
Right.
If you see, I am a big NA drinker, especially in the summer, because being on boats and by water is very alcohol triggering for me. I want to be able to have something cold and beer-like in my hand. And so if you look, the fact that White Claw made an NA drink, the fact that there are NA companies like Athletic Brewing, it's not just this thing where back in the day it was O'Doul's or a seltzer water with a lime and you faked it. Right. There are a lot of options now. I think that's a huge trend of the industry and of this generation saying, they're conscious, they're awake. They don't want to be in a situation where they don't know what's happening around them. I think that's really, really beautiful as well. So I do want to say, like, I am very grateful and thankful for this younger generation of saying, like, this is enough. I've seen this happen to my parents or, my aunts and my uncles, and I'm not going to let this happen to me. And they're taking a real stance against it. And I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not that I put a lot of
popular.
Yeah. And not that I put a lot of weight into any of our, academies here in the United States, but the American Medical Association also came out and saying that no amount of alcohol. It used to be that, one a day or one a week would be healthy for you or you'll live longer, all these studies. And they've come out and said, absolutely no amount of alcohol. It is poison. None of it is good for you. So choose wisely.
One of my favorite podcast maintenance days had an episode about red wine. And I don't think that was the whole episode was about it. The point is, I think it was about antioxidants or something. But the point is they said there is a small portion of a grape that is an antioxidant that's good for you, right? That there's such small traces of that in red wine.
Oh yeah.
That whole, I think it's called like the French paradox of like red wine being good for you. Yeah. It's not even true. It's not even the true thing. And again, no shame or blame or anything to anyone who enjoys red wine. I'm sure many of you can have one glass. Never was the case for me. But there's not this underlying current of healthiness or a way that it's going to benefit you. It just doesn't. So I think it's really important to keep a pulse on as well.
And we all choose, right? I think that we're not shaming anybody who has an occasional relationship with alcohol. Not at all. That's your relationship with alcohol, and that's great. That's not the relationship that you guys had with alcohol. It's different even from mine, right? And I've chose against it just because of my own the way it was physically making me feel. And being a hormone disruptor and trying to slide into menopause the easiest that I possibly can without all the hormone replacement, and just trying to do it as naturally as possible, but also not hurting myself along the way. We're not shaming anyone, and I just wanted to say that again. And Amanda has said it. If you have an occasional uh, glass of wine, or it's all about limits and boundaries. Right? We all have our thing, and I think that if you don't struggle with limits of alcohol and being able to limit yourself with alcohol, great. Right? If you overextend yourself with sugar, you end up with diabetes. Right? There's all of these things that we just make choices about.
Yeah.
And part of what we're doing here is bringing consciousness to people's stories and women's stories and their struggles, because I think we all have, and Amanda and I just commented about this yesterday, man, the common theme that shows up. And
Yeah.
it's so beautiful to witness, and yet at the same time it's like we're having all these different topics, but similar themes keep showing up time after time after time. And make your own choices, do what resonates for you, do what makes you feel good, get in touch with your child self and protect that person at all costs and make that person happy. And man, your life will blossom in a way that you can't describe.
So, quick story, I stopped drinking. I never liked sweets before. Hardcore, no thank you to sweets. I stopped drinking, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, all I want is a freaking sheet cake. That's all I could remember.
I am thrilled that you're in your sweets era. Because it was really hard being best friends with someone who didn't like sweets.
As a baker, as a pastry chef, you're like,
as someone who loves sweets, it was a struggle. We got through it though.
I didn't realize there were so much sugar and alcohol that I was drinking, because I wasn't a sweet drinker.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I liked dry wines. I liked a dirty martini. There's still alcohol sugars, and those are sugars. So my body was like
converting it all to sugar anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I read some really helpful books that like helped me understand that. And so anyway, I went off the deep end, every sweet possible. And then I had to get blood work done. I thought, they're going to tell me
that I'm diabetic.
I am diabetic because of how much. And what was great is I got my blood work done. Everything was perfect. Everyone's so different. And so I will say, if you are someone who's trying to get sober and you are in like the throes of sugar addiction, that's okay. Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to give up everything all at once. Just be gentle with yourself. It's going to take some time to find a new normal. It's going to take some time to find the right coping mechanisms. Seltzer Squad is another podcast I really loved listening to when I first got sober. Treat yourself like a little baby.
Yeah, it's that saying, like, for the first year, I just kept repeating, if all I did was stay sober this year, then that's fine.
Yeah, that's all you
only
do.
Accomplishment I need. I just stayed sober.
Yeah, especially when it's a true alcohol addiction that you're just, like, I'm not talking to maybe the casual drinkers, but if you're someone that really desperately wants to get out of this, cocoon yourself for a whole year.
Yeah.
Do nothing. Don't feel bad about anything. Just wake up every day and be sober. And if you are someone who likes structure, maybe you are religious, and there are AA options everywhere, in person and online. If you're like Brittany and myself, we just kind of self-educated through reading a lot of great books, and I'll add some of those books in the notes for today. There's great podcasts. There's great movies, there's great shows, like there's so many great things. Louder Milk is one of my favorite new shows that came out about sobriety, which is like crazy but so good. There's a lot of resources now that never used to exist. So don't think of, the movie you saw in the 90s where a bunch of dudes were sitting in a paneled room with shitty coffee and cigarettes talking about sobriety. There's a lot of other options of how getting help can look like. So,
yeah.
Teachers. Let's talk about her teachers.
Yes.
3 teachers.
Oh,
3 women that influenced you.
I knew this was coming, and it's so hard because I am very blessed to have many, many, many amazing women in my life. Like, truly, I cannot it's very hard to narrow it down. Um, but I really thought about like, 3 people that I go back to every single time. So, my mom, obviously, I'm best friends with my mom. We have always been very close. She was also very young when she had me. So, growing up, like, sh- she's a super hard worker. So, growing up, we lived with my grandma. And I just remember my mom like hustling all the time. Like she had to work so hard. And my grandma helped raise me. So she's another person. My grandma Gammers, not my Nana. She also helped raise us. And I know how hard my mom worked to get us what we have now. And she's my like biggest supporter. She's so proud of me. And that's really important too. In sobriety is having people around that like verbally tell you they're proud of you. So she's just so proud of me. My mom works a regular 9 to 5. On top of that, she has an antiques business. She has a candle business. She has a vintage clothing business. She hustles. They just bought a house from the 1800s and they're, tearing it apart and rebuilding it basically. Like she has just always worked so hard. So while I think sometimes she works too much, it is very inspiring. And I do think I get like a pretty solid work ethic from her. So love my mom so much. I got very lucky. Um, my Nana is, I'm gonna try not to get emotional. My Nana is one of the most beautiful people I have ever met in my life. She truly was just a joy to be around. She's a firecracker. Um, Jewelry was like her big thing. She loved jewelry. And one of my favorite things was we would go visit in the summer and stay with her and my aunt. But when we went to her house, it was jewelry makeup time. Like you'd walk in the door and she'd have a necklace for you ready to go or a ring. And sometimes it would be gaudy. Like it would be like, how am I gonna wear this? But it was the fact that she picked it out specifically for you. One of the big things she did was birthstones. And as a big astrology person, love crystals. I just thought that was so special is that every single person she would get you jewelry with your birthstone. That was like a big thing for her. Um, that and then makeup, just like she'd let you get in there and wear all of her makeup, and she always got like the Estee Lauder gifts and Clinique, and she'd get all the gifts and then just give you everything from it. And shopping, she loved to shop, she loved to take us shopping. And she was so affectionate. Love my mom, but she's not a super physical person. And I'm not necessarily either, but my Nana was so affectionate. And when I would visit her, I would realize how much I craved that. And now I would give anything to get like another hug from her or another kiss. Like she just was such a lovely person. And after she passed, we found out all these amazing things that she did for other people that she never talked about. So I miss her so much, but she was a huge influence in my life. And I just hope I grow up to be her. Truly, I just want to be just like her. And then you, sister.
She's speaking about Amanda Riley.
Yes. I mean, honestly, you're my best friend. You're my longest friend that I didn't really know what friendship was supposed to look like before I met you. And during our drinking days, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, but now that we're sober, our relationship is just even more beautiful and thoughtful, and I just care so deeply about you, and I know you care so deeply about me, and you show it to me in a lot of different ways. Like I said earlier, you taught, and I think the first episode, you taught me how to be a boss babe in the workplace. You taught me how to be unapologetic, and not to say you shouldn't be sometimes, but
No.
in an important way. um you've always been there for me. Like I said, I've really struggled with mental health, and you had pulled me out of a lot of those situations, especially last year. Thanks for calling my mom. And I could just go on and on. I just love you so, so much. You are my favorite person. I just we always joke around like we feel like partners sometimes.
Yeah.
Or like we're in a relationship because we just treat each other with so much respect, so much love. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's just so easy.
I think it's easy to like being around someone who's authentically themselves and not trying to be someone else all the time
Yeah.
makes friendship so much easier and better, because just like a romantic relationship, I know what I'm getting with you every single day, and I think you do too, vice versa.
Yes.
And I even tell Christy this, like, you're just so easy to be around because you're just you.
Yeah.
And whatever you perceive as good or bad, to me, it's the best.
But you allow me to just be me. Like I said, I mask myself sometimes, or I'll like act kind of how someone's acting towards me. With you, I am authentically myself, like 100% myself. And that feels really, really good to be able to be myself with someone.
I love you.
Love you, sister.
Wow.
Maybe that'd be a litmus test for when you're with the next date.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much. What a great first two-parter.
Thank
Agreed.
you.
Wow.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And very important.
Where can they find you, Brittany, if people want to follow you on social?
Yeah, so at Sober Bestie Guide, that's going to be more the sober resources. If you just need help, or if you have questions, if you're sober curious, anything related to sobriety, please follow us at Sober Bestie Guide. It's not something that we're like posting on all the time, but there's a lot of really great resources. And if you send a DM, if you have questions, like we'll absolutely have a conversation with you. And then my personal is at Growing Up Baked. When I first started it, I wanted to have like a food blog. Now it's just like a random mix of a bunch of unhinged things, but I definitely share my bread baking on there. It is private, but please send me a DM. Again, if you have any questions for me, if you want to talk about sobriety, if you're sober curious, really anything. So at Growing Up Baked or at Sober Bestie Guide.
Are you looking for anything for the bread business?
Yeah, so
you want to put out there for the universe to bring to you?
I really want to teach classes. Like, I think that would just be ideal. I would love to teach classes. I have like a name for like what I want my bakery to be. I have a logo. I have all of that. It's just a matter of making it happen one day. I work a very intense corporate job, so, I just have to get myself to a good place. But yeah, I would love for like bread baking to be my future, just like teaching people how to bake, sourdough specifically, selling it, selling all the other goodies that I can make with sourdough, jams, butters, all that stuff. So eventually, yes, that is the path that I want to go down. And if you want some starter, even absolutely message me, and if you are close, I will drop off a starter for you because it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Great. Well, amazing. Thank you for coming.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
We will see you all next week. Please make sure to follow and like us on our socials. Untamed Blossom on Instagram, Facebook, and on Spotify, most importantly.
Send this to anybody who you think might benefit from the conversation.
Yes, please. And we would love for you to also give us a rating if you enjoyed this as well. It helps more people find our podcast, and especially on such an important episode, we would love for other sober curious people to give us a listen. So
Great.
thank you.
See you guys.